I'm not a podium person. Thank goodness we stuck with that one, but I'm not a podium person. I wander, I come in, I might sit next to you, I might, not be where you typically would find a presenter, because I have to be constantly moving. My mother will tell you from a very young age, I never sat still. I was always that kid in school that teachers hated because I never wanted to sit where my teacher wanted me to sit. And so I constantly have to be moving because my mind is just always working on things. So I apologize in advance for that. So just like they do on every airplane ride I fly on, if this is not your intended session, it will not embarrass me at all, or you. We'll just point and laugh if you walk out the door if this is not the session you're supposed to be at. We are going to talk about tech-savvy administrators today. One of my passions is leadership. I don't think there's enough sessions for specifically geared towards administrators, especially those who are school leaders, or those who work with school leaders, or those who are district leaders. There's not enough professional development for those groups of people. There's tons and tons, when you look at this conference, there's tons in every conference, tons of professional development for teachers. Most districts spend most of their money and their time on teacher professional development, rightly so. Their largest population of people in their district are teachers. But we miss a huge portion of our population in schools and districts when we miss out on school leaders. And so I've personally spent the last several years working with and on school administrator projects, and I'll talk a little bit about those today. So I think it's important for you to know who stands before you. My name is Stephen Anderson. I have lots of different titles. Don't ask my wife; she might not tell you the nice ones. But I am a dad. I have 2 children. Those are my children. Those are when you create a presentation, you put in a slide that has stock photography. I tell people all the time that is not the stock photography that came with the slide. Those are my beautiful daughters, who I actually miss very much today for some reason, but they're pretty cute. So my oldest is Reagan. She's 5 years old. She just started kindergarten this year, and she's a pretty cool kid. I've been telling everybody that I can tell about. So Sylvia talked about making and things like that. My daughter and I have been working on programming. She's 5 years old. I have a computer. I should have brought it with me. I have a computer. It's called Kano. Has everybody heard of a Kano computer? So this is a computer it's an actual computer. It's a Linux computer that you build for under $100. It was a Kickstarter that I backed about a year ago. Comes in a box. You actually put the circuit board in it. You wire it up. You put the speaker in it, and then in order to use it, you have to program it. And the whole reason behind that is what Kano wants to do is have these replace your typical desktop computer, because when you buy a desktop computer, you're pretty much locked into that OS, and there's not a whole lot you can do with it. With a Kano, you can pretty much make it do whatever you want it to do. My point is, my 5-year-old has been working on that. So for those people, especially this week being Hour of Code, those people who say that kids can't code in kindergarten, like her teacher said, I beg to differ. So, and then the other one, that's all she does. Her name's Jedney. She's 15 months old. She just looks cute all day. I'm a former director of instructional technology for a pretty large district in North Carolina, Winston-Salem, Forsyth County Schools. I left in April because I was spending more time out of the district than I was in the district, and that's not fair. It wasn't fair to my staff. It wasn't fair to my students or my teachers, and so I decided to hit the road. I do lots of different things, work with the union, work with lots of schools and districts around the country on various projects. I actually have 3 books that have all come out within the span of about 3 months of each other. I don't know what I was thinking. I spent a lot of time on airplanes in the last year, so I wrote a lot of books on airplanes this past year. I have a book out now called The Relevant Educator. It's the first in the series from Corwin, called the Connected Educator series. It's all about how if teachers aren't using social media, they're quickly becoming irrelevant. And I know that's a very off-putting statement, and some teachers don't like that, but I wholeheartedly stand by the fact that if you're not using technology, specifically social media, you're quickly becoming irrelevant in your own classroom. So come with me and I'm going to teach that. My second book, which actually comes out tomorrow, is about what we're talking about today, Tech Savvy Administrators, and then I have a book coming out in January called Content Curation, How to Overcome Information Overload, all about the curation process from start to finish. So if you're going to be here tomorrow, I'm actually doing a session on content curation, and we'll look at that. But anyway, that's how you can get in touch with me on Twitter. That's my blog address and all that other good information if you want to get in touch. Now, I do and go to lots of sessions all over the place all the time, and one thing that really bugs me is the presenter that says, oh, well, I'm going to give you all these resources at the end. Just wait till the end. I'll give you all this stuff at the end. And you're furiously writing it down because you don't want to forget what you had to do. So I give everything to you up front, so that if you decide that you don't want to listen to me anymore and you want to leave, you still have everything. Or there's another session you want to go to, you still have everything. So this link, bit.ly/VSTE Tech Savvy, will take you to a Google Doc that has all of the resources that I'm going to talk about today, has all of the information that you're going to need. I'm not big on QR codes. I missed the boat on that. I didn't miss the boat on QR codes. Anyway, it's a link. It's a bit.ly link that you can just write down and go to afterwards. But that doc has all of the resources. In addition, it'll have a lot of things that I don't get to talk about, or that I'll forget to talk about, or that I simply just don't have time to talk about. And that document is open for comments. And the beauty of this is since I do a lot of these presentations all over the place, a lot of people have added in their thoughts or their ideas. This is the first time I've presented this specifically, so there's not anything like that there. But when I go and do this, actually doing this next week, anything you add, any comments you add, so when I talk about blogs or I talk about something else, if there's something that you wanted to add, you leave a comment there. I incorporate it in, so the next time I go somewhere, your information is there, that's cool. That's how we learn. We all learn and grow together. So that's up there. I'll show this at the end in case you don't get the link. Or if you don't get the link, just elbow your neighbor and say, what was the link? Now, so it's kind of ironic that, it was not really ironic, but Susan Larson from VSTE was talking about the ISTE standards, and she said, oh, you might go to a session today and hear about ISTE standards. Well, yeah, in this one, because I'm going to talk about ISTE standards. And I didn't flip her a 20 to tell her that, but I think it's important for us when we start talking about administrators. It's important, especially when it comes to technology, it's important for us to have an understanding of what that role of the administrator should be in terms of technology. There's a lot of standards out there for administrators, so I don't know a lot about Virginia or about how your standards work, but I know in North Carolina we have a set of professional standards for school principals, which none of them address technology, not a single one of them. That a principal in North Carolina has to address anything with their own personal use or professional development revolving around technology, which is huge. That's a big gap in what we do in North Carolina. So I think it's important to understand what it is that the role of the school leader. Now these are the nets for administrators, or the standards for administrators. But that just doesn't mean the school principal or assistant principal. This is superintendent, this is director of technology, this is anybody involved, I think, in a leadership role in a school, all the way down to operations. Anybody can follow these standards. It's that important. There are 5 areas, so we'll go over them briefly. The first is visionary leadership. And having visionary leadership means that leaders are deeply involved in the technology planning process. So that, to me, means that if I'm at a school and our school is making a decision about technology, it's not the principal saying, you all make that decision because I don't know anything about technology. That's not visionary leadership. Visionary leadership is directing and driving those decisions based on good information. Not because some slick salesman came into your building and said, you have to have this because it's going to raise test scores, it's going to decrease dropout, it's going to save you money. It's because they made an informed decision. They're the ones who are helping make those decisions. They're heavily involved in that process. They're also, especially at the district level, they're fully funding a technology set. And I sat next to somebody yesterday who's in a very good district, not a very large district, but only has 4 staff to work with 15 to 20 schools. In my district, I had 81 schools, I had 54,000 students, I had 6,000 teachers, I had a staff of 7. I had the largest technology staff in the state of North Carolina for instructional technology. At 7. And there are 3 districts that were larger than mine. There are 3 districts that had over 150 schools, and they had less number of people. My point is, if we're going to put so much emphasis in to utilizing technology, then technology isn't stuff. Technology is good teaching, it's good pedagogy, it's good understanding, and that comes from a well-trained staff. And then makes funding for technology and integration a priority. So it's not the stuff. It's not the stuff. The stuff is important, but it's not the stuff. It's the integration piece, which is the people and the professional development. So that's visionary leadership. The second, digital age culture, is one of the more important ones, I think, that technology is used and embraced by all leaders. The thing that burns me up the most about school leaders, and I love school principals, don't get me wrong. If you're a school principal, you have a very, very hard job. The thing that burns me up the most as a director was I would go into principal meetings and I would sit amongst principals who would joke about how they couldn't turn their new computer on, they couldn't log into their new computer. They freaked out when we went to, my district went to Microsoft, and when we changed from Lotus Notes to Microsoft, they had a complete conniption because they didn't know how to log in. That to me is not acceptable. If you're a school principal and you're walking around and you're looking at how well teachers are doing or evaluating their use of technology in the classroom, and you sit back as yourself and refuse to use technology yourself because you don't want to learn, because your job is more managerial than it is leadership-based, that's a problem. So part of being a tech-savvy leader is actually being tech-savvy. Now that doesn't mean using technology at the same level as the teacher, because the roles are completely different. But it's at least having that understanding. And part of that comes from using and embracing technology by all leaders. Seeking out new opportunities for technology integration for themselves, and not just seeking out those opportunities, but encouraging others to do the same. And then attending conferences, workshops, seminars to further understand the importance of technology. How many here are a superintendent? 0. I always get 0. That's so sad to me. That is so sad to me that superintendents don't come to these conferences. How about assistant superintendents? 0. The people the ones who are making the decisions about where the directions of their districts are going, sure, they're relying a lot on you all in this room to help them decide that, but they have to be a part of that process as well. And a lot of them avoid conferences like this because of their own fear and apprehension towards technology. They come and they see makerspace or hackerspace or kids creating pianos on bananas, and they think, whoa, I can't do that. I'm this number of years old, or I've been in education way too long to understand how that works. You don't have to understand how it works, but you have to understand why it's beneficial. Excellence in professional practice. Uses and encourages the use of a personal learning network. How many people understand what the term personal learning network means? How many people have a personal learning network? Every hand should go up because everybody here has a personal learning network, especially here at this conference. Those are the people who are not in your school, not in your district, not in your staff, who you go to help answer questions, figure out problems, look for solutions, who aren't in your situation, in your building. They are outside of you. Most times connected through technology. Does not always have to be, but most times connected through technology. And then understands the importance of having access to social networks and a fully accessible internet. Now those people who saw any of my tweets yesterday know that I had fun with a principal yesterday a principal who's here, I won't tell you whose director of technology was here as well, was talking about how he, as a principal, has to circumvent his school internet filters to communicate with his parents. That is insane to me. Not to do anything instructional. The whole instructional piece is different. But in order for this principal to effectively communicate with his community, he has to circumvent his school policy and filters in order to make that happen. I hope I'm not the only one who sees a problem with that. That's crazy. This whole idea of blocking and filtering. I wrote a piece for Facebook back in 2010 about how to create social media guidelines for schools. First of all, I think there's too many social media policies out there. You don't need another policy. You already have one probably. But one of the things I did was I looked at social media policies from all over the country, and there's one in there from a district in Pennsylvania that grinds their teeth every time I talk about them. But they are fully adamantly against social media, so much so that they put it in their school policy. It's a policy violation if you use social media as a teacher in your classroom for the course of learning, that their district doesn't embrace it, they refuse to embrace it, they think it's terrible, they think it's awful, they think it's the worst thing ever. They say that they're protecting students, which may be true. The next paragraph talks about how they're going to create digitally competitive students and citizens by making sure that they equip them with all the skills necessary to do so. So you're going to teach them digital citizenship skills by blocking everything available to them. My point is, being and having excellence in professional practice means understanding those conversations. A lot of people cite, I have to block those things because of E-Reg, which former director of technology at USDOE, Educator, would say is totally not true. That's a lie. It's a cop-out. There's nothing in E-Reg that tells you have to block anything. There are other things, such as COPA, that tell you have to block, but not E-Reg. Okay? So my point is understanding those things. Not understanding how it works, but understanding those things. Systematic improvement. So it's not just about leadership, it's about improvement as well. Provides a means for funding, so there's the funding piece again. Reaching out to the community to gain that further funding. So being an advocate for funding for your district outside of traditional means. And then the one that's important is allowing educators to seek out those professional development opportunities. Did anybody actually have to pay for their sub to be here? Anybody in the classroom? Everybody's leaving? Classroom? Did you have to pay for a sub, or did the school give you grief about being here, or was it okay? Okay. In North Carolina, the teacher wanted, and this is North Carolina, I get a look on North Carolina. North Carolina, my wife's a 6th grade math teacher. She presented at the North Carolina Teachers of Mathematics Conference. Presented a very awesome session on middle school mathematics and technology. She had to pay $50 a day to be out of her classroom. Because the rules in North Carolina are, if you want to go participate in professional development, you have to pay for your substitute to be there. The district won't cover that cost. So I said, I'll pay for it. That's crazy. That our principal won't even cover that. It's things like that, is allowing others to seek out those professional development opportunities as well. And then lastly, digital citizenship. One of the great things about the ISTE standards is digital citizenship is wrapped into all of them, and it's another thing that burns me up about school administrators is copyright. So my daughter gets home a weekly reader every week. She's in kindergarten, so she's learning how to read, because God knows she's going to be tested on it at the end of the year. And it's a photocopied book that I know they do not have permission to photocopy. They didn't want to buy 31 copies for all the kindergartners, but they're going to make sure their kid has a weekly reader home. And there it is, right on the second page that they photocopied is the copyright notice that says, do not photocopy this book. But it's things like that. Understanding those rules, understanding how that works. Promotes and establishes those policies, maintaining a district blog. We'll talk about blogging and communications in a minute. So those are the 5 standards. Any questions about those? Comments about those? I'll take a drink of water. Now, why is all this important? Because evaluations depend on it. So I told you earlier about my gripe and grief with school principals. Again, I love school principals. I think it's a very difficult and challenging role, and I think it takes a very special person to do it. However, if you're tasked with walking into the classroom of a teacher and determining how effective they are at being a teacher, and you, as a leader, have not sat in a professional development and understood what that teacher is doing in their classroom in terms of technology, how can you judge how well that teacher is using that technology? I say you can't. And this all came about from, so as director, one of the things I was responsible for was our district-wide walkthrough program. So our principals all had a walkthrough protocol that they used that was supposed to be, was designed to be, how they could measure the effectiveness of various programs and professional developments that were happening in their building. So the idea was that, you deliver some type of professional development to teachers, you want to see what the outcomes are in the classroom. So the teacher was going to go through, so everybody knows, for example, SIOP. Does anybody know what SIOP training is? So it's this idea that it's how you reach English language learners. So students, especially students who speak Spanish, it's how you reach them. So you go through this training of being able to teach those kids how to recognize words and sounds and phrases in every classroom. So it was very hard to see the results of that key professional development. So we had this walkthrough program where you could go in, and if the teacher was using those things, you could see it, and it would show up on the walkthrough program because of how the teacher was interacting with the students. It's a great way to determine how effective your professional development was for your teachers. But what I was seeing, I would go on these walkthroughs, and I would go with these principals, and they would have their little protocol form, and one of the questions would be about the teacher's effective use of technology. So this teacher is effectively using technology. And we talked about what that effective use should be and what it should look like. So I would go into a classroom with this principal, and the teacher was not doing anything intentionally bad, but it was just really bad. It was bad. And the principal would say, you gotta check out, this teacher is awesome. She is doing amazing things with her kids. Look at what she's doing. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, it's terrible. It's just bad. But he thinks that it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And so that's what got me thinking about helping administrators understand truly what it meant to be effective. And what I created and what we created in our district was kind of the first program specifically designed for technology professional development for administrators. And what it did was it broke them down. They had to apply, and they worked throughout the year, through the course of the year, during the school day. So they had to come out of their school, they had to come to me, and we worked with them on 4 different areas. The first was their own personal use of technology, just what we'll talk about today. So they had to understand the types of technologies that their teachers were using. So they came to us and they told us what they wanted to learn. So if they wanted to learn how to attach an email, by golly, we were going to show them how to attach an email, because that's what they wanted to learn. And when they were comfortable with that, we moved on to the next thing. Most of them came to us saying they wanted to learn what their teachers were doing. And when I would sometimes snidely say, well, we do this PD at your school for your teachers, why don't you just show up? Oh, we don't have time for that. We have time to come in. So my point is, we were already providing that. Why weren't they taking advantage of it there? And they said they didn't want to appear as if they didn't know in front of their teachers. It's that whole leadership hierarchy. So what we were trying to provide to them was a safe space. So they came to us and we taught them how to use interactive whiteboards, how to use clickers, formative assessment, how to use web-to-go tools, all those things. But it wasn't exactly what they would see in the classroom. It's how they could use it for themselves, which is what the majority of what we're looking at today. So if I'm doing a Google Docs session for teachers, the way that I would teach that to an administrator is radically different than how I would teach that to teachers. And how I would teach Evernote to a principal is radically different, because the language I'm going to use is different. The conversation I'm going to have is a lot different. So it began to make sense to me that, wow, these principals aren't coming to the session because it's not geared to them. It's that same thing teachers tell us all the time. The subject matter doesn't matter to me at the PD, so why am I going to pay attention, or why am I going to come? And finally dawned, the light bulb went off when they said that. Why would I come to this session? You're going to talk about how it's used in 2nd grade. I don't teach 2nd grade. I need to know how it matters to me. So the second area we worked on was what is effective use. So what does effective use look like? How can effective use be identified? And that coupled with the third area of how do you walk into a classroom and actually see effective use. So knowing what it is and how do you see it are coupled together. So we looked at the walkthrough process. And then the last area, which I think is the most important, how do you coach a teacher? How do you coach a teacher to be a better teacher? So our evaluation programs all over the country don't tell school leaders how to be a better coach. It tells them how to evaluate And then the principals or school or district leaders rely on others who have subject matter expertise to be those ones who coach them. Well, I really think that person in the building who is doing the evaluating should be the best coach that that person has. But the problem is that role of the school leader has been shifted so much to being managerial and less about instruction, so they don't see themselves as a coach. So we talked about technology coaching, how they could be that first person before they called us. And imagine if you had a school principal who sat down with you and said, well, here's how I'm using Evernote. How do you think you could use it too to keep better track of student progress? Because that's one area where I see a deficiency. Here's what I'm using. What could you do? Imagine if that had happened. That would be awesome. So those are the 4 areas. So we worked on that, and we've had a lot of success. Of course, we had a lot of resistance. We had a lot of principals who just came to us to do it just because they needed a principal renewal credit. And those principals, they did what they had to do and they left. The ones who really embraced it, they're the ones who we can see now, and I still do a lot of work in those schools. Those are the ones where you can see the teachers really, really gaining a lot of momentum when it comes to their own personal technology use. So I think a lot of this goes back to this evaluation piece, is that you want to have an administrator who doesn't know, what I'm not saying, and I don't want you to walk away saying, well, Stephen says, the administrator has to be the most tech-savvy person in the building. That's not true. But the administrator in the school or the district should have a cursory understanding of how technology works and can be a person who can provide a lot of goals and a lot of assistance and a lot of coaching to teachers as they work through using technology themselves. And I think there are 3 main areas for that where it's very, very, very easy for a leader who's not using technology to use technology very effectively. Now, what we're not going to talk about is how to use these tools in the classroom. We'll talk about blog, but I'm not going to talk about classroom blogging. There are other sections for that. Or you can talk to me later, I'll talk about classroom blogging. What we're going to talk about, though, is how these tools are used in the course of being an administrator. Okay? So effective communication, effective collaboration, and effective productivity. Now, we're going to talk about a lot of different tools. So if you're a school leader thinking, I'm going to have a great toolkit, I'm going to be able to take that, yes, you are. But does that mean Stephen is telling you have to do every single one of the tools that are in this deck? No. And if you tell somebody that Stephen said that, he will deny that ever saying it. Don't do that. Don't do that. Pick and choose the ones that you can fit in and that you can work for you in your situation. Let's talk about collaboration. Now, this is the time. This is the time. I'm doing that talk tomorrow, and it's going to be great. I hope it's going to be great. But I'm more about interaction. So if you have an idea, you have something you want to say, you have something you want to share, just stand up and shout or scream or whatever to make sure that you know what you want to say, that make this interactive as possible. So, communication. Now, I think it's important when we talk about communication. Why? So, as school leaders and as people who are in the district, we love data. School administrators love data. I can go into any school principal's office and I bet I can find stacks and stacks and stacks of school data. Or I can go into a superintendent's office and on the desktop of their computer they probably have 5 bazillion spreadsheets open with all sorts of data on it. We love data as in schools. I think we have personally I think we have an obsession with it to the point where we're over-obsessed. But since we love data, let's start out with some data about communication. So what this is, and you have a link to this, if you go to this website where this graphic exists, it's actually a Flash-based website that starts at 0 and counts upwards for as long as you have the page open. And what it does is it ticks up every second, and so you can see how all of these things change. What this is a snapshot at 60 seconds. So this is 1 minute on the internet. Now, this is 2013 data, so we're not finished with 2014 yet, so we don't know. So this is 2013. So just some highlights from 2013. Has anybody ever heard of Google? It's the search engine where you type in things and it tells you the answer to a lot of things. It's kind of like a teacher sometimes. Anyway. They make $96,000 every 60 seconds in ad revenue. This year they're on track to do about about dealt with that. Amazon. Has anybody ever bought anything on Amazon? I did. I bought something today while I was sitting in the keynote. Don't tell Sylvia. 140. They make $141,000 every 60 seconds. That's profit. That's after-tax money. That's a lot of money Jeff Bezos is making. 141,000. Now, communication-wise, Facebook. 3.1 million likes on Facebook. YouTube. Did anybody hear my YouTube stat yesterday? I love YouTube. So YouTube, anybody still block YouTube? Oh, Lord have mercy. So take this stat back and tell your instructional folks and your superintendents this stat. So back in 2009, this is 2009, what year are we in? 2014, almost 15. 2009, more video was uploaded to YouTube every hour than the four major broadcasters, ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, had ever created original programming combined in their history, all the way back to radio. Every hour, there was more than that uploaded to YouTube. It's hard to wrap your mind around how much data that actually is. Does anybody pay for video streaming in here? For educational video streaming? So, I don't like this. I don't want to say anything. Somebody said there's something that starts with a D, where a guy just got eaten by a snake, so I'm sure there's a lesson plan for it today. I love video streaming service. I think they provide a great deal of service. I was going to be charged $100,000 for it in my district. And we opened YouTube, and guess how much money I saved? $100,000. And it was just as good. Now, is there a lot of good stuff on YouTube? Yeah. Is there a lot of bad stuff on YouTube? Yeah. But the people who say, well, how do you make sure that kids don't watch the bad stuff? I say, I would tell teachers how to teach better, so that kids don't have time to look for the bad stuff. Anyway, you can see the number of tweets, you can see the number of snaps, you can see the number of Instagram posts, you can see all of this. So this is data that's flying. This is every 60 seconds. It's a tremendous amount of data out there. So since I love to talk about social media and I talk to districts all over the country about social media, what about social media? Okay, let's bust some myths about social media. So 2014, Pew Internet. Has anybody ever heard of the Pew Internet study? It's this ongoing study that the Pew Research Foundation has where they look at trends in lots of different things. And they have this ongoing internet study. And they've added an ongoing social media component. So this year, the number of people who use social media is 74% of all U.S. internet users. So 3/4 of the U.S. population, that's ages 0 to death, use social media. So whether you like it or not, your grandma probably has a Facebook page. And she probably is following you, and you might not know. 74% of all internet users. Now, if people tell me, oh, not in my district, not my parents, well, 3/4 of the population of your county probably are. We can probably deduce from that. So 3/4 of all internet users are using social media. Age, income, education, where they live, it doesn't matter. Whether you're rich or poor, what your ethnicity is, whether you're rural or suburban or a farmer or living in the city, it doesn't matter. 3/4 of you are using social media. Now, when you start to look at those different subgroups, who would you think is the largest user of social media? So kids, like teenagers maybe. So kids maybe ages 13 to 18 or 9 to 18 or whatever. And that is true. They are the largest users. We know that. Now, they're not using the same social media you are, but they are using some sort of social media. After teenagers, who do you think is the largest subgroup of social media users? This is a safe place. You can shout it out.
Middle-aged.
So somebody says middle-aged. Say again. So retirees, older folks. Hispanics. So Hispanics, outside of teenagers, are the largest social media using population. They're in the 68%. So those folks who tell me, oh, well, my district has too many non-English speakers, they don't use social media. The data doesn't support that. So nearly as many people who use social media in its whole, Hispanics are using it in very large numbers as well. Those numbers, they're slightly higher among those who are English dominant because the products are written for English dominant speakers. But the largest using subgroup is the Spanish dominant speakers, but afterwards, 50 to 64. It's not even teenagers. It's not even teenagers in the Hispanic population who are using social media. It's those people who have school-age kids. So that's myth number 2. Now, what are people saying? So again, these are 2013 numbers. 132 million Americans, 42% of the entire U.S. population who has a Facebook. So this is of the U.S. population, 42%. Check Facebook at least once a day. Some of you are probably on it right now. That's okay. Hopefully you're posting good things. Sounded a great session with Stephen Anderson. It's amazing. Tweets. 52.7 million tweets are sent, or 52 million Americans, sorry, 52.7 million Americans sent 500 million tweets. Twitter came out with a very interesting statistic about the number of educational-centric tweets, and it's surpassed 100 million globally, which that's kind of exciting. Pinterest. Anybody use Pinterest? I've finally seen somebody raise their hand who's a man who raised their hand. So, I don't get Pinterest. I've built some things from Pinterest because my wife says you will build this. I have eaten some things from Pinterest because my wife says you will eat this. But more and more teachers are turning to Pinterest as a place to find educational resources. Now, I have a problem with that, and we can talk about that at greater length. But I think there's an information literacy gap there that we're not addressing when it comes to Pinterest. But anyway, 5.2 billion page views. You imagine does anybody have a personal blog? You imagine if your website got 2.5 billion page views? That would be awesome. I would love to have a quarter of that. It would be amazing. So the point is, there's a lot of people who are using these services who are out there. Now, mobile. 40% of all mobile phone owners access a social network. Age, race, ethnicity, socioeconomic, doesn't matter again, so it's high across most populations. And then the population accessing social networks, again, not surprisingly, Hispanic. So my point here is, if you as a school leader are not embracing social media as a means of communicating with your community, then you are missing out on a large portion of support from your parents and from your community. Most parents are coming to us with a negative view of school anyway, not because of anything you did to them, but because of what happened to them as kids in school. And so they're translating that to their experiences with their kids. So the minute they come into the school and they have that school secretary who's very frazzled because he or she's had to deal with everything throughout the day and gets a not very nice greeting, they instantly think, that school hates me, I'm not going to do anything that has to do with that school because that school doesn't want anything to do with me. And it's just one little incident. But because of how they were treated in school, Siri just wants to be a part of the conversation. But because of their experience in school, they have that negative view. So if you're not doing everything you can to reach out, you're missing out on better ways to engage your community. And the reality is, how many of you have school district websites or district websites? Most, probably 100% now. You know and don't tell any of the vendors downstairs, but most of the views on those sites are going way down at a roller coaster pace because more and more things are going to social media because it's instant. You can check it whenever you want to. I don't have to go to the school district. I don't have to go to the school district webpage anymore. I don't have to go to my daughter's school webpage anymore because the information updates a whole lot faster through the Facebook and the Twitter feed than it does to their school webpage. They forget to post there because they're posting to Facebook and Twitter most of the time. So as a school leader, I think there are some key areas that you can embrace for effective communication. The first is blogs, and the easiest way you can is blogs. Now, there are two ways that you can do that. You could do that for a blog for your school. Meaning this could be a place where you're sharing information with your community about what's happening in your school. That's a great second step. I think the first step for a school leader when it comes to blog is the example here from my good principal friend, Jeff. Jeff is a principal in Winston-Salem. My daughter actually used to go to his school until we just moved recently. But he does what he calls the morning memo. It's so dead simple. What he found is he would send all this information out via email, and guess how many teachers would read it? 0. They just didn't read it for one reason or another, because their parents were always emailing, they missed it for some reason. Now he posts it the night before, and so the teachers will either go in that night or the morning, and sure, some of them still not checking it, yeah. But now it's a running record of everything that's going on. And what I love that he posts is where he's going to be. So he said, so like in this one, hey, I'm in the joint principals meeting. The agenda for that meeting is in this folder for the blog, so you can check out what we're talking about. So he's very transparent with his staff about what the district is doing, which some of the district don't like that. I'll just tell you that up front. But he's very transparent with his teachers about what the district is doing. He wants his teachers to be informed. He's also posting them, meeting announcements. The other thing that you don't see on a grant announcement, the other thing you don't see is who the subs are in the building and who they're subbing for. So the teachers know that morning, hey, if I'm doing a special and the specialist teacher is not there, so the music teacher is out that day, I know to expect a sub. Or I know that I'm not going to have a special that day because they couldn't find a sub. They know that right then. They don't know that when they're walking into the door. They should know that because they're checking morning message. That's a dead simple way to engage in a more effective communication with your staff. Now, going and taking that public, now he has a link to this blog on the school district website. So parents can see this. So parents will also know the night before if their kid's going to have a sub tomorrow, and whether or not to talk to little Johnny about his behavior when the sub isn't there. But I think the next logical step after this is taking it public and doing more of engagement with the community. I think that's a great second step. But I think a good first step is just doing it for your staff. So blogs, that's one way. Twitter. Has anybody ever heard of Twitter? Twitter, that one never heard of. So I say Twitter because it is an effective means to talk with and share information with your community. It's a very simple way, it's a very easy way. I won't go to a terrible much detail because I think we've talked Twitter to death. I think at this point, if you don't know what Twitter is or how to use it, Google it. There are some considerations, and I have some, and I'm just it's dawning on me now. I don't think I put in the document all the considerations, but I will put them in as soon as we're done. I'll put them in, and I have a blog post on the considerations that you should have as a school principal before you start a Twitter account. Things like what email address do you tie it to? Things like what name do you choose? Things like that. But I think Twitter can be a very effective means. What I love about Amber here, Amber's a friend of mine. She's an assistant principal in Texas. And what I love about Amber is that she posts not only things related to her school, but she also posts information related to her learning. So her teachers are following that. Her parents are following that. And she will tell you that she's gotten lots of comments from parents about blog posts that she posts that have had an effect on them in their profession, and they're not even educators. So she's not only educating herself and her staff, but she's helping educate her community just by having tweets like this. Twitter can be another good entry point for effective communication. What time are we supposed to be done? Oh God, 15 minutes. Let's go. Facebook. Anybody use Facebook for schools? So Facebook can be an effective way. It can almost be a better way than Twitter. It can almost be a better way than your school webpage. So Facebook has a groups for schools option. Be careful with groups for schools because it is specifically designed for groups. I would more recommend a fan page because the fan page you can create a vanity URL, which is a customized URL, so it's very easy to find you. But the Facebook page can be a better way to engage. You know those news articles that your district posts, or those news articles that your school website posts on your website that nobody reads? They instantly get read on Facebook because people are sitting at a doctor's office, or in some cases they're sitting at a stoplight and they're looking through their Facebook feed. And they see it. And the more often you click on a user or the story that a user posts, the higher up they appear in your news feed. So the more you're posting, the more likely someone is to see it because they're clicking on it and they're engaging with it. What a lot of districts who still maintain websites, so I was just doing some work in North Carolina just last week with a school district, they will tell you, and they will be honest, very honest about it, that they use their school website for pretty much just informational purposes. If you want to learn the stories behind what's happening in their school district, you go to Facebook. And they find their engagement level has gone way up because of Facebook. Okay? Instagram. Is anybody using Instagram? So you want to talk about the easiest way as a school leader to document the awesome things that are happening in your building. It's not blogs, it's not Twitter, it's not Facebook, it's Instagram. If there's one tool that you walk away today in using as a school leader, especially if you're a superintendent, assistant superintendent, director of something, whatever your title is, insert it here, that every time you go into a classroom and you see something awesome happen, you should be documenting it on Instagram. As a school principal, again, the lead learner in the building, you're out in the building all the time, and you're seeing, because you're doing those walks, or you're a superintendent, you're out in buildings, you're doing those, you're meeting with people, you're seeing great things that teachers are doing, snap a picture and post it. Everybody carries, mine are up there. I carry 2 phones, because I'm crazy, but I carry 2 phones. Every principal carries a mobile device now. Most of them are using it pretty much exclusively. It's so easy to take that picture and document what the great things that are happening in your school because you have a story to tell, and post it. You can do 15 seconds of video. Now imagine that mom who came to the building, who had that negative interaction with the school secretary, the next day sees on the school's Instagram feed a picture of her kid using a makey and a short video of it. Now Johnny's a hero, now the school is a hero, now you've got an instant person on your side who wants to help you. He's a celebrity, man. She's sending that link to everybody, grandma and everybody. Johnny Lawrence. This is an Instagram account run by kids at a school this is a friend of mine who started the school, but the kids run this Instagram account. So that's another step that you could take with that. Remind, is anybody using Remind? I love Remind. Now full disclosure, I am a consultant for Remind, but I'm not a paid consultant, but I advise on education policy, things like that. But Remind is a very quick and easy way as a school leader to let your teachers know of things that are happening that you don't want everybody to know. So really quickly, Remind is a texting service where you don't exchange numbers. So I can start a group, I can give you a number to text to, you join it, I don't ever see your phone number, all I see is that you joined, your name and that you joined. And then I can go into Remind and I can quickly send you a 160-character message with a link or a poll or an attachment or a sticker or anything. I can send that information to you through a text message. So if the staff meeting is canceled, instead of sending you an email or posting it to my blog because you're in the middle of teaching that day, I can send it to your phone, which then buzzes in your pocket while you're walking to lunch and say, oh, no staff meeting today. And I go about my day. Some schools are turning to Remind for emergency contact. You can have you can run this as a school and have your parents sign up for it. There are lots of different ways to use this as a school. So Remind can do that. Questions about effective communication? Anything I missed? Anything that you're using that's effectively helping communicate with your community as a school leader? Yeah.
Is there a service that combines all those social medias into one? Well, there's some that do a couple, but
so Hootsuite is one that will do Twitter and Facebook. Right. The ones that will do all of them that are used by like brands and big companies are out of reach of school districts because they're very expensive. So there are a couple, but I don't know that I like to. I tell people a lot, and I've done some work in marketing, and I think a good marketing person will tell you that you don't want to be posting the same thing on all of them, because people want to see different things out of the social media services. So the information I would post on Facebook would be different than what I'm posting on Twitter, than would be different what I'm posting on Instagram, would be different than what I'm doing on Remind. And so they would tell you, you try to vary those messages, because you have different audiences for all of them. Now, in the case of schools, you're dealing with adults, so you're probably not dealing with people who are buying Coca-Cola or something like that. So they could be the same, but your messages you want to try and keep different on each one, I think. Yeah.
I was just going to say, Remind links very nicely to Twitter.
Yeah.
Same as like YouTube linking to Twitter and all that.
Yeah. Questions, comments? Yeah.
I was going to say, I had a great conversation a couple of weeks ago talking about social media and how different the parents' mindset was when they're reading an email. It's so task-oriented, it's work, it's professional mindset versus social media, Facebook, you're looking at grandchildren or high school friends and how relaxed and responsive you are to the exact same
It's a totally different feeling. It's a completely different feeling. You think about how many emails you get a day. Now, we're in a profession that sends and receives and communicates a lot. Other professions do that too. Other professions more. And so they probably, a lot of your parents have probably read a lot of email. The reality is most people have access to email now, so they have access to an email address, so they can use some of these things. But think about the different types of interactions. All right, the second one, effective collaboration, we're going to apply now. So effective collaboration. So this is where you can really shine in front of your teachers as a school leader. This is where you can really show off some cool things that you're doing. And if you're not using any of these can be some easy ways to integrate technology into your daily life as a school administrator. The first I highlight is Dropbox. Now I highlight Dropbox because I am a Dropbox user. I love Dropbox. I've been using it forever. Some people prefer OneDrive from Microsoft. That's fine. Some people prefer Google Drive because that's what their district provides. That's fine. The point is you're using some sort of online cloud storage. And you're not storing things on your computer. So as a person who worked in technology, who had to go when my friendly administrators would call and say, Steve, there's something wrong with my computer. I have 10,000 documents open, and I'm going to lose them all. What do I do? It's because my computer is crashing. I had a principal who literally, she would fill up a hard drive on her computer because she saved so much stuff, so she bought an external. She had 5 external hard drives because she was so afraid of losing something. Sandra, just put it in the cloud. You can access it anywhere, and that's the key. When you put it in the cloud, and the cloud is this mysterious thing, and there's a great commercial of, I think it's a storage commercial where these people are like, oh, I'm putting stuff into the cloud, and the cloud comes over and zaps them with lightning because it's all mysterious and everything. But you put these documents in the cloud, and not only do they get backed up to your computer. So if I use Dropbox, I have a copy on my computer, this is why I prefer Dropbox. So if I put something in Dropbox on that machine, it lives on that machine, but it also gets uploaded to the Dropbox website, so I can access it on my phone, I can access it on my tablet. The next time I turn on my other Mac, guess what? A copy gets downloaded to that Mac too. So it lives in all of those places. So not only does it back up on my computer, but it backs up in the cloud and I can get to it from anywhere. Now, the key component with all these document sharing is the actual sharing piece of it. I can share this document with whoever I need to via a link, via an email address. I can invite you to a folder. So as a school leader, you could use this in the same way. Putting your documents in there, sharing them with your staff. So instead of printing off all those emails or printing off all those things, you just, hey, I'm going to share this folder with you, and this is where I'm going to drop stuff throughout the year. So all that testing data, I'm going to just drop it in a secure folder. Or all this, the school improvement plan, I'm just going to drop in this folder. Whatever, what happened. Anybody ever heard of Google Docs? So you're not, really only 2 people have heard of Google Docs? It's already 10 o'clock, I'm already so tired. So Google Doc, I think one of the ways that we're not using Google Docs is for administration. So I used to deal a lot with school improvement plans, and North Carolina school improvement plans, no joke, are over 100 pages. Which if you can get through that in a year, that's a tremendous feat. But we would, imagine in the olden days, like 3 years ago, when you would have to edit a document, and you had a team of people who were going to do it. You either split that document up and email it out, and then you had version 1 or version 2, and then you had to put them together, or somebody had to stay up over the weekend and do all the reformatting and everything and put it together. You don't have to do that anymore. So I worked with the principals and I put all their school improvement plans into Google Docs. Now all they have to do is share that with their school improvement team, and now they can work on it together as a group. So you're not working in isolation anymore. You can put anything up there and share it with people. That's the key. Is now you edit it one time, or you can have other people edit it, and now everybody has access to it. Digo, is anybody using Digo? So I love Digo for social bookmarking. So the idea here is that you can, all those bookmarks that you save on your computer that used to live in, God forbid, using Internet Explorer, but in Google or whatnot, where you couldn't take them with you. Digo is a social bookmarking service that allows you to take them with you. What I highlight about Digo is not the fact that you can make those links public, that you can share them with people. That's great. I'll talk more about that tomorrow if you want to learn more about how to do that. What I specifically like for administrators is, you read a lot. If you're an administrator, you're probably reading a lot. So you might be reading an ASCD article in Ed Leadership, and you're like, man, this is great for my teachers. I want to share this with my teachers. And so after you get permission, or the permission is already granted, you share that article with your staff. And if it's an electronic one, with Digo, there are tools that you can put in your browser that you can highlight, that you can put a little sticky note and a comment. So what I've seen principals do, and what I've seen superintendents do, is they have this article that they share with a large number of people, where they've highlighted key points or key questions that they want to talk about, and they put a sticky note next to it that says, at our next meeting, we're going to talk about this. And then they just share it electronically. All of that stays on the post. Then the social aspect comes where now I can start adding in my own post-it, and I can see what the principal down at the elementary school put, or I can see what my assistant superintendents put. And all that takes place on the article, and it stays there forever. And we're the only ones who see it, because we're the only ones who have access to that specific link. Okay? So that can be a really creative way to do that. All right, 3 minutes. I don't mean to rush, but we're going to go. Evernote. Anybody using Evernote? Yeah, so one of the best ways, and this is kind of a more advanced way for school leaders, but I think it can be one of the most effective, is teacher portfolios. So, now I don't know how it is here, but I can tell you in North Carolina, teachers have to show evidence for every single thing that they do in the classroom, which is probably a good thing. But keeping up with a lot of that evidence can be a challenge. And so what you can do with Evernote is, in Evernote, think of Evernote, if you don't know what it is, think of it like a giant filing cabinet, and then you've got drawers, and those drawers you have dividers, and there you've got folders and notes, pieces of paper. So I can create a drawer that's for Ms. Smith. And in that drawer, in her notebook, I can create individual notes. So I can take her walkthrough information and I can put it into her Evernote account. I can take my notes and put them in there. Any pictures I take, I can do audio notes. I can attach video. I can attach documents. I can put that all in her little folder. So now I have a running record. Well, that's not good enough, because now you can invite the teacher to edit that notebook, and now she can do the same thing. So she can put in her artifacts. She or he can put in those information. When they put in a lesson plan, they can hit the audio note button, and they can narrate that lesson right there in Evernote. And now I've got this year-long running record for portfolio for a teacher. Now, you can do some of the same things in other services. For Evernote, you're gonna pay for that because it's $45 a year as an individual user, but I think that's a small price to pay. But everything is integrated into one program. If you're gonna use something else, you have to use multiple different types of programs to do what Evernote does. I don't get paid for Evernote, but I do love the premium service that Evernote provides. $45 a year, that's not cheap. And I gladly would pay for that. So Evernote, that's one thing. I have information about that. Now Google Calendar, if you're not using an online calendar, you should be. A lot of districts are providing calendar services. But the key here is to make it public. Embed it somewhere. Give it a link to somebody. Don't hide where you're going to be. Put everything that's going on your calendar and share it with all your teachers. Let them know, hey, I'm going to these classrooms. And then if it's somebody who I want to go observe, I can go to the principal and say, hey, I know you're going to be in so-and-so's classroom. Do you mind if I come hang out with you so I can see what you see so we can talk about it? And the only way I would know that is because I saw it on your calendar. So Google Calendar is an easy way to do that. There's lots of different services that are out there that do that. Hangouts, is anybody using Hangouts? Virtual office meetings. So you can have virtual professional development. You can have up to, I think it's 11 or 12 or 10 or some number of people all on video. And why you want to have 10 people all on video talking at the same time, it's crazy, but you can do that. How much is it? 100% free. What's even better than Hangouts, I think, for video is Screencast-O-Matic. Now, the purposes are different, but I think another thing as a leader that you can do is screencast stuff. So I talk a lot about flipped meetings. So Peter DeWitt and I had batted back and forth about flipped meetings, but I think flipped meetings are the way to go now. So you're not doing anything managerial in your meetings anymore. You're screencasting it, so you can take that agenda item of things and you screencast it. So it's this little program, little website. You hit start record it, record your screen, record your audio, and you can then just send that out as a link. So all those mundane things you can do at the start of the year, end of the year, kinds of things, you can share those with your teachers. And then now that frees up your meeting to do PD, which is what a lot of teachers said they'd rather do in this meeting. So screencasting. So quickly, a couple of things to remember because I know we're past time. Technology is meant to make life easier, not harder. So if it's making your life harder, stop using it. Find something else to make your life easier. Use in moderation. Technology doesn't have to be used all the time. No matter what anybody at the conference tells you, you don't have to use technology all the time. Sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it's not. Choose. Can't replace everything that you do, so there's still room for human interaction here. And then choose wisely. Make sure you're choosing something new. Start slowly before you move on to something else. Really quick, if you want all the book where I explain all this stuff, so this is the Shameless Promotion Department part of my presentation. My book for Tech Savvy Administrator comes out tomorrow. It's from ASCD. It's, I think, $9 this morning. So you can go out and get that ebook copy if you wanted to buy the ebook. You can't buy it till tomorrow, but you have it instantly if you wanted it. And it'll go on your Kindle or your iPhone or whatever. So you got that. Again, those are the resources, bit.ly/VIT.savvy. If you have any questions, I'll roam around, I'll wait, whatever you need. I know we went through that quick, but I spent a lot of time on the why on the panel, so I apologize for that. But hope you have a wonderful